An unexpected departure from the Texas football program. Our friends at Horns 24/7 reported earlier today that Texas safeties coach Blake Gideon is leaving the Longhorns to become the next defensive coordinator at Georgia Tech. What does it mean for Texas? Who are the top candidates to replace Gideon? We'll discuss on today's edition of the BK Show. What's up, guys and gals? Welcome in to another edition of the BK Show. This is your one-stop shop for Texas Longhorns content on YouTube. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. So Blake Gideon, the former Texas player who has been a member of Steve Sarkisian's staff since year one in 2021, is getting a promotion. He's off to Atlanta to be the defensive coordinator at Georgia Tech, and good for him. It's a promotion. Blake is a young coach who has worked his way up over the years, and this is a great next step for him. If he has a good 2, 3, 4 years in that role, he'll probably get a head coaching gig somewhere. And hey, Georgia Tech, they're in the ACC. That's a very winnable conference. They've got a good defensive-minded head coach with Brent Key coming off a solid season. They've got more money than people realize in that program. It's a good job for him. It's a good fit, and good for Blake. And I'll give him credit. He really turned his reputation around in the span of a year, didn't he? I mean, Texas fans were calling for his head after that Washington game that capped off the 2023 season. I mean, Texas had one of the worst pass defenses in America last year. The safety play was atrocious. Guys were turned around. Guys didn't know where they were supposed to be. They were pointing at each other. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't cover. It was a bad combination, and it was a bad secondary in 2023. People wanted Blake Gideon gone. People wanted Terry Joseph gone. Steve Sarkisian, give him some credit. Stayed the course, kept him around. It proved to be the right move because Texas had one of the best secondaries in America in 2024. And of course, you look at the safety play, that was a big part of that. Andrew Makuba, Michael Taft, Derek Williams Jr. before he got hurt, Jelani McDonald, those guys balled out all season long. And they were a big part of why the Longhorns went from one of the worst to one of the first ranked pass defenses in college football. So good for Blake. Glad he stuck around this past year, earned this job. Happy for him. Now for Texas. Look, you don't want to lose any coach from a good coaching staff. And Texas had a good coaching staff. They still do. But if you were ranking the most valuable coaches on Sark's current staff, Blake Gideon wouldn't be at the top. No disrespect to him. I don't mean this to be a shot, but Texas losing to Shard Choice to the Dallas Cowboys would have been a bigger loss. Texas losing any of its coordinators, PK, Kyle Flood, Jeff Banks, those would be bigger losses. Chris Jackson leaving would be a bigger loss. Kenny Baker, even though he's only been here for 1 year, that guy walking out the door for another gig, those would all be bigger deals than Blake Gideon leaving right now. So wishing him the best, but Texas should be okay. And I think it's important to note that Texas is more than likely not going to lose any current players because of this. Like Jonah Williams, the 5-star freshman early enrollee from Galveston Ball, he's not hitting the portal to go to Georgia Tech now that his safeties coach is gone. Like Jonah Williams, there's a good chance he would have ended up in Austin, even if Blake Gideon was never a part of this coaching staff. Again, Gideon helped recruit Jonah Williams here. Don't mean to take any shots, but Jonah Williams, Zealous Hicks, you look at Michael Taft, and that guy's obviously not leaving. That guy bleeds burnt orange. He wouldn't leave for the NFL. There's no way he's leaving to go to Georgia Tech. But Jelani McDonald, Derek Williams, Xavier Filsaime, Jordan Johnson Rebel, like it's a loaded safety room that the Longhorns have. Those guys aren't going to transfer to Georgia Tech to follow Blake Gideon just because he's switching schools. So you don't have to worry about player attrition, I think, with this move. I don't think you have to worry about some sort of tremendous drop-off in recruiting because of the timing of this move, right? National Signing Day 2 was yesterday. National Signing Day 2 doesn't really mean anything anymore because Texas didn't pick anybody up yesterday. The class has been done since December, but it is kind of the start of the 2026 cycle. Texas only has 3 players committed for next year, none of them on defense, of course, meaning none of them at safety right now. So I don't think you have to worry too much about this having some sort of major impact on the recruiting front either. So now that that's out of the way, where do the Longhorns go from here? Who are some top candidates to replace Blake Gideon? Comment below with your thoughts. We'll talk about a few of these today, and maybe we'll save a few more potential names for tomorrow. But here's some of the names that I've thought up and some of the names that I know Longhorn fans everywhere are starting to throw around. One of those names is already on Steve Sarkisian's staff. That's Michael Huff, a.k.a. Huff Daddy, who is currently the assistant director of player development. I think Michael Huff needs no introduction, but I'll give him one anyways. The College Football Hall of Famer who got elected in January and is going to get inducted later this year. Of course, a Thorpe Award winner, had a great career in the NFL, national champion to boot. Yeah, Michael Huff would be a great hire for Texas. One of the best safeties in college football history. A guy who was a huge part of DBU back in the day. What a guy that would be to learn from. And you talk about recruiting. I mean, if you're a safety and Michael Huff walks into your house, yeah, you're going to listen to what he has to say. That guy is cool. That guy was a stud player. That guy has meant a lot to the Longhorns football program over the last couple of years already in just that Dwight Schrute type of role that he's had. That'd be a big-time elevation for Texas to get Michael Huff not only continuing to do what he's doing, but doing more of it and also getting to recruit as well. Because the current gig that Michael Huff has, he just kind of shows up whenever he wants. He doesn't have to be there every day. He can show up at practice. He could coach guys a little bit. He could show up at practice and just watch if he wants. He cannot show up at all if he wants. Like, he basically decides how involved he's going to be. And Steve Sarkisian and company are perfectly fine with that. So the question with Michael Huff becomes, would he be willing to give up that schedule? I think Texas would absolutely love to make Michael Huff their next safeties coach. But does Huff want to give up all of the extra time that he gets away from the game, his family time, any extracurricular activities that he has? I mean, he's got a pretty flexible schedule right now. He'd be giving that up to become a full-time position coach. Got to be there every day. You got to go out and recruit. You got to travel to recruit. There's really no days off when you are a position coach at a major university like the University of Texas. Of course, the opposite, there's more pay. You get to move up the ranks. If Michael Huff has long-term desires to be a defensive coordinator or a head coach in college or pro football, then this obviously would be a natural step for him. But, man, a source that I heard from said it would be a tough sell. I don't think it's a guaranteed no, but it seems like Michael Huff likes the lifestyle that he gets to live right now. Who wouldn't? Enjoys his family time, enjoys what he's got at the moment. So I don't know. He's definitely a candidate of interest for me, but will Texas be able to convince him that this is the right move? We'll find out. Another candidate. Once again, a couple more in this video. I'll do a little more research and maybe we'll go more in depth tomorrow. But another name that Texas fans are tossing around, stop me if you've heard this one before, Duane Akina. Yes, that Duane Akina, who is currently the DB's coach at Arizona, 68 years old. Another guy who doesn't need much of an introduction, one of the original architects of DBU at Texas. Like when Texas was actually in the conversation for DBU, Duane Akina was a big part of that. He was close to returning to the 40 acres last offseason as a senior analyst, but he got a promotion at Arizona. So he was already there, was thinking about taking a gig here in Austin, but Arizona promoted him to defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach. So he stuck around Tucson in 2024, but some potential good news for the Longhorns. The Wildcats moved him back to the role of just defensive backs coach following the season. So he no longer has that defensive coordinator title, meaning maybe that demotion makes him reconsider a job here in Austin. And a safeties coach job is better than an analyst job in terms of money, in terms of title, in terms of everything. So maybe Duane Akina is an option as well. When you look at Arizona's situation, Brett Brennan was a first-year head coach this past season. It was an underwhelming year. I know Arizona lost a lot to Washington when Jed Fish took that gig, but Arizona had its quarterback back. They had T-Mac back, a wide receiver. They were supposed to be a lot better than they were. It was a rough year one for Brett Brennan. Arizona fans already unhappy with him. He's not getting fired right now, but if he doesn't turn things around within the next year or two, he could be out of a job, meaning Duane Akina would potentially be out of a job. Coach Sark, back-to-back college football playoff appearances, back-to-back off seasons in which he's signed a contract extension and gotten a nice pay bump. He ain't going anywhere. So better job title, more job security, more money, all things that Texas could potentially offer Duane Akina. And of course, it'd be a homecoming. It'd be an opportunity to coach some top tier talent. And come on, if you ever have heard anybody who's played for Duane Akina talk about Duane Akina, they've got nothing but great things to say about the guy. I think of my boy Rod Babers, good friend of mine, worked together for a while back in the old radio station days here in Austin. I mean, Rod B has spoken so incredibly highly of Duane Akina over the years. I know he and a number of other former Texas DBs would be very much on board with bringing Akina back to Austin. Even though he's approaching 70, still feels like he has that itch to coach. And I think that'd be a pretty nice get for the Texas Longhorns if they're able to bring Akina back home. And then the last one we'll talk about today, another interesting name, a guy with a lot of skins on the wall and a very impressive resume, and a guy who also has some familiarity, not necessarily with Texas, but with a key member of Texas's staff. That's Jimmy Lake, who worked with Pete Kwiatkowski for years at Washington, at Boise State, at Montana State. Jimmy Lake right now is jobless. He was the defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons this past season. Not a great year. He was one and done in the ATL. So he is available right now. But Jimmy Lake has a lot of experience. He's been an assistant coach in the NFL. He was the head coach at Washington from 2020 to 2021. Things did not go well there. He got fired not long after he got the gig. But still, he's got head coaching experience. He's got plenty of assistant experience in both college football and the NFL. And he's a defensive backs coach at his core. And of course, spent a lot of time working with PK at some previous stops. So those guys have some familiarity. They've got some chemistry. They know what to expect from one another. So if Jimmy Lake took this gig, it wouldn't be like a, what does my defensive coordinator want me to do situation. He knows what PK wants him to do. He knows what PK is looking for. And man, you look at some of the DBs that both of those guys together coached up. I mean, just the safety position alone, Budda Baker, Taylor Rapp, Elijah Molden. Those guys were all at Washington when those dudes were there. Cornerbacks, Trent McDuffie, Kyler Gordon, Kevin King. Those guys all at Washington as well when the PK and Lake combination was there. So, yeah, I'd like all three of those names, right? Michael Huff, he's already done a great job as a member of this staff. We know what he means to Texas football. We know what he means to the current players on this team. Duane Akina, we know what he's meant to Texas football history. And Jimmy Lake, with his resume and his familiarity with Pete Kwiatkowski, I think you could do a lot worse than any of those three. So there's another intriguing name, a couple more intriguing names we could talk about in tomorrow's video. But again, we wish Blake Gideon the best. Great job turning this Texas secondary around this past season. Good for him. Nice promotion for him. But Texas will be fine. I think we all trust Steve Sarkisian to get this hire right? Right? And his assistant hires have been money. A lot of them are still here going into their fifth seasons at Texas. I mean, Texas couldn't keep a defensive coordinator for more than a cup of coffee for like 2 decades. You got PK going into year 5. Good hire. A lot of good hires that Texas has made. And you look at some of the replacements that Sark has had. Stan Drayton, replaced by Tashard Choice. I'd call that an upgrade. Andre Coleman was the first wide receivers coach here. Lasted 1 year. Then Texas went to Brennan Marion. Lasted 1 year. Now Chris Jackson. He's been awesome. Kenny Baker looks like a big-time hire, replacing Bo Davis. Johnny Nansen looks like a great get, replacing Jeff Choate. So Steve Sarkisian has my trust. I think Sark has earned the benefit of the doubt for a lot of Longhorn fans as well. Texas has a really talented safety room. This is an attractive job for a number of different reasons, and I think the Longhorns will be able to bring in a big-time candidate when they fill this role. So comment below with your thoughts. Who do you want Texas to go after as its next safeties coach? If you made it this far, number 1, thank you. Number 2, friendly request to please give this video a thumbs up. And number 3, friendly request to please subscribe to the channel. Appreciate y'all watching. We'll be back to do it again. Remember, when you watch the BK Show, you rule. Talk to y'all tomorrow.